Hey guys, welcome back to Antel Economics, and today we're back with podcast 16, where we're going to be talking about a variety of things such as education, investment, and farming.
Yeah, but before we get into that, we obviously do have tweet of the week. So this week's tweet of the week is in response to the poll we put on last week about should the UK government be encouraging schools to reopen following news about children being the transmitters of the disease. As we can see, the vast majority of the answers were no. Comment down below what you think and whether you agree with what everyone else thinks or if you have opinions of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So that actually leads us on quite nicely to what we can talk about first. So I thought we could talk about possibly A levels, and last week Thursday we had the release of A level and AS grades, and there's been a lot of upheaval and a lot of people disheartened with what they've got. And what do you think about the whole situation, Alan?
Yeah, no, obviously it's a very sad situation to see. Loads of people have been putting in a lot of effort, and to see on paper what they're getting, even since they haven't even done the test and they're getting fails and U's and grades that are way below the predicted is quite sad, and I think there is a flaw in the system.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. I think I saw a stat with over like 2,000 people got given U's, and apparently you can only get U's if you don't actually turn up to the exam and you don't
Yeah.
actually see. So, stats like that shows that somewhere the system has definitely gone wrong because, they just wouldn't happen in real life.
Yeah,
So
no, I saw about that, and there are loads of these radio stations and channels like LBC. They've been talking about this, and I've been
yeah,
hearing students, talking about their results and how bad it is. And yeah, it's just there's an interesting idea. The actual algorithm, they base it off previous performance of the school rather than weighting it more on the individual's track record within the school. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think that's where it's all flawed, because in obviously some of these poorer schools in less well-known backgrounds and things like that, there will always be a few kids who are really bright and intelligent and they have the potential to go really far in life. Yet they're at a school where they're sort of limited because that school, say, may have a history or a track record of over-predicting. And
Hmm.
therefore, when they've had their grades submitted by teachers, they haven't been looked at in a serious manner. And I feel
Yeah.
like they've been sort of let down not just by the off-course system, but also by their own school's previous record.
Yeah, once again, it's an example that highlights the kind of social inequality that exists and kind of
Yeah,
shows how, if the more affluent you are, the more chance of success you have, regardless of how talented you actually are.
yeah, 100%. I've seen also another stat that showed, I think, an upper 4.7% of grades in private schools, which is, something quite high compared to the other schools that we've seen around 1.8, less than 1%. So
Yeah.
it's a lot. I think it's also not just causing a problem for these students, but also for universities because, they've got places that they need to fill, and if people aren't achieving grades, it's very difficult for them to actually um, fulfill these places, and this is going to affect the future of some of these individuals.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And on the kind of topic of universities and career progression, what do you think the impact of this is going to be on the future job market? COVID-19, uh, where in the next coming years, we're going to be expecting the economy to recover. We're going to be expecting loads of these high street brands to reopen shops
Mm.
and look for more employment. We're going to be expecting more niche jobs to reopen. And if people are being held back because of these A-level results, which might also be replicated in the future, if the schools remain in kind of this kind of limbo state, what do you think the impact of that's going to be?
Yeah, so I think it could actually be a sort of a blessing in disguise for certain individuals. I don't know if you know, but in the last session in 2000, was it 2012?
Mm.
2000, yeah. So that was when actually quite a lot of now really established big companies were set up, because people were forced out of their jobs and they were forced to look elsewhere. And essentially, some of them had to be a bit more creative. Entrepreneurship came into pitch a bit more. So we had companies like Uber form,
Yeah.
Airbnb form, and these are now really established household names, in
Yeah.
the market and worldwide, globally.
Mm.
They play a huge role. So also, the thing is, this is only for 1 year, so we don't know in the future, next year there may be another pandemic, there may be another pandemic after that. So we can't really look too far into the future, but I
Yeah,
feel like it could open opportunities for there to be more entrepreneurship and more innovation at a
yeah.
time really needed during such a such a crisis.
Yeah, no. I was just I agree with you there, but I was just
Yeah.
thinking about how if everything's delayed, people are not getting into the universities they want. I know a very large amount of people who've been wanting to get into medicine, but the grades that they've got have now meant that they cannot do that. And
Yeah.
so we might see in the future maybe a shortage of doctors or a shortage of people who want to get into that field, and not necessarily of employment in that sector.
Yeah, I think there's for a subject like medicine, it requires a lot of skill, a lot of you really have to be very good at what you do. When we're in an office-based situation, you can make mistakes and you can a lot of the
Yeah,
time recover from them. In a medical environment, you make a mistake and someone could be dead, and
yeah.
you can't actually recover as easily. So I feel like when it comes to med school and stuff, I feel like I understand why restrictions are a lot more tighter compared to
Mm.
other courses at other universities.
Yeah, yeah, no, I see what you mean there. Um, Talking about industries and growth, there was a article talking about coronavirus fueling interest in vertical farming. Now that for those of you who don't know, vertical farming refers to kind of indoor farming, the use of technologies such as hydroponics, where that you don't actually grow them in the traditional way. You just grow them in these kind of these arranged spaces, and their source of nutrients comes in water and sprays. What do you think about this?
I think it's actually could be quite a good route.
Mhm.
Personally, well, not personally, but we know that the world population is continually increasing and space is becoming more restricted and more confined. By 2050, we expect to have around 10 billion people living in the world. So,
Mm,
as time moves on, we have less and less space because there's more and more people living in the world. So something like this could actually be really effective if it uses up
yeah,
small amounts of space or it uses up space, say in households where you can't
yeah,
typically normally grow things. I think it can be really effective in reducing some of the shortages of food in the future.
yeah. No, I completely agree with you. It is an alternative, and it's a movement into the kind of future technology. Green energy, sustainable transport, and this kind of farming. I think it's all like a really nice example of how basic economic principles. The demand for food. Is being met by the supply of this kind of innovative farming. It's really nice to see as well. Do you think it has a future in kind of the mass market? Do you think it could be a main source of supplying food for the UK at least?
Well, I think it'll be quite expensive to produce and manufacture it, using high tech. So it might not be the route right now for mass production, but I
Yeah,
certainly can see it having a potential in the future. I feel like the environmental impacts of it will be quite heavy. Right now we see deforestation occurring because farmers want to plant crops and stuff so they can
yeah,
feed their families and sort of generate incomes. Whereas if countries like the UK can move towards this and sort of being a bit more independent in
yeah,
growing food, it would be really beneficial.
yeah. No, 100%. Oh, obviously, this is restricted to kind of vegetation, but still
Yeah.
moving towards this is a great way for countries, for developed countries, to become more sustainable.
Do you think this would help possibly the battle against climate change?
Oh, 100%, yeah. When we, the whole point of vertical farming is that we farm upwards, we don't expand, and so that would limit the amount of deforestation, that would limit the amount of like soil erosion that's taking place. All of
Mm.
these kind of geographical factors as well are being limited, and what we're going to be seeing if this takes off is a large reduction in emissions that we will
Yeah,
see.
absolutely agree. I think emissions is the main thing there. You won't have the transportation
Mm,
cost, which I think is really heavy, especially if you look at countries in Asia where they transport a lot of heavy items
yeah.
like rice and stuff
Yeah.
across the world. So yeah, I think it'd be really beneficial.
For Britain especially, there'll be like COVID-19 immigration policies from Brexit, the vast amount of Eastern European workers that would have come and worked on these farms. that's going to be restricted, and so maybe this is an alternative for those higher costs of employment as well.
Exactly, yeah, I agree with you there. So just as you touched on Brexit there, so how the UK, I read an article and it said the UK remains attractive to investors despite Brexit. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so obviously Brexit, it was an issue that was facing us even before the pandemic, and now that we're here, um, it says that the UK remains attractive. I think that's to do with how the UK, first of all, is so secure and attractive for their bonds. It is known as a safe haven kind of
Yeah,
government for debt. And so investors are always confident in the UK's ability to pay back debt in the long run. And I think that's one reason why the UK's kind of investor confidence in the UK is high and isn't going to go down even after Brexit.
yeah, I think there's actually a lot of potential in the UK. So
Yeah,
obviously the UK has become such a stronghold within the world, known
yeah,
for all of its power and glory in the past, but still in the present, it's still regarded as a very strong country. And if we think about that, a lot of that is made up by just the strength in London. London
yeah,
outrightly seen as such a dominant force as a capital of the
yeah,
UK, of England, sorry. So once we actually level up the rest of England and the UK, I
yeah.
think this will provide definitely a lot of places for investment to occur, but
Mhm.
also further expansion of the UK economy and power that they obtained in the world economy.
Yeah, yeah. It's also kind of the whole idea that it's not just the UK that's suffering through the pandemic. The whole world is in this kind of
Yeah,
turmoil, global trade turmoil, and so comparatively with UK's resources, we are still remaining a haven for investors in this period of instability.
yeah. So I think, like you're saying, the UK is quite a safe place. It always has been,
Mm.
and I think investors will still use the UK as a sort of a center for a lot of their investment because they can see good growth and potential there.
Yeah, yeah. There was news about Tata's kind of CEO or head talking about the UK being a destination where he's comfortable moving in. So, that's this kind of example of how investors are looking towards the UK to expand to. Is kind of a glimpse into the future after Brexit, where we could get more employment. We could also get more investment coming into the country that could help with COVID recovery as well.
Why do you think that the UK is still staying so attractive and it's people like say Tata isn't looking for lower emerging countries around the world?
I think that especially post COVID, these lower capacity countries won't have the facilities to recover to the level that they were, uh, as well as the United Kingdom. Their reserves are quite weak in comparison with the United Kingdom. Their kind of fiscal balance is weak. Their political landscape is comparatively weaker as well. In all of those kind of areas, with conflicts, politics, trade, UK still remains on top as a Western dominating society and economy. And so it's much more attractive for businesses to come here, especially in times of uncertainty.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think there's so much uncertainty in the world. The confidence levels have really taken a hit in recent months.
Mm,
That is one of the key reasons.
yeah.
The risk to then put a load of money into one of these countries could be quite severe if their returns, are not as safe as say they are in the UK, where I think they are a lot safer and a lot more likely to turn out
Hmm.
positive.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. In terms of industries and certainty, there is one industry that has been kind of highlighted to be attractive to investors, and that's the kind of luxury hotel market in the United Kingdom. Why do you think that's so? What's your thoughts on that?
So, sorry, what was that again? So the luxury hotel market is.
The luxury hotel industry is looking for growth, and investors are confident in its performance in the future. Do you have any opinions on that?
Well, I think London is seen as such a pivotal city. It's the dominance, it's the name, it's the iconic moments that it has. I
Yeah.
think that's why it will always stay alive. It the luxury hotel business will always be there because we will always attract the most wealthiest people from around the world. People
Yeah.
want to visit London. It's one of the things that they want to do in life, and they know that London is not it's not cheap. It's not a cheap place to live. It's
Yeah.
not a cheap place to go and visit. So. And most of the time, you don't attract poor people, you attract fairly well off, affluent individuals, and therefore, this means that they can afford to stay in luxury hotels and will therefore mean that the luxury hotel business will stay fairly afloat.
Yeah, 100%. As international restrictions are easing in terms of crossing borders, people who are in positions to go abroad, such as these wealthier, will most likely go out to these hotels, etc., etc. This kind of topic was brought because I heard that a Cadbury Air was acquiring a hotel. You know, it's all cheaper now as well. So, do you think it's the right time to acquire businesses and expand them, especially when everything's cheap now?
Well, I think if you definitely have the cash reserves and you have the confidence, you have something which is already stable in line, giving you good income. I feel like yes, it's definitely a good time to invest and to expand your portfolio because I don't think there'll be ever a time like this again for at least for a while. Well, I hope for a while where
Yeah,
there'll be such opportunities in the world to invest and eventually, as we know, the markets will recover and everything
yeah,
should hopefully go back to normal.
yeah.
And so I think it's definitely a optimum time to invest. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. Like, loads of notable, investors, Warren Buffett, they always talk about how the market will always go up, even in periods like this. And there's loads of idioms, and people always talk about how recessions are the best time to invest because you get pennies on the pound. And I think this is an example of that. If you do have the reserves for it, then identifying the right market would be the right move for me.
Exactly. And who wouldn't listen to Warren Buffett?
Yeah. So on that note, I think it's a nice way to end today's podcast.
Yep. Thank you guys very much for watching.
Thank you guys. Be sure to tune in next week and follow us on Twitter at Antel Economics. And for now, see you.